acronym iSPELL. Friends, indeed, it's a great pleasure and honor to have you on this platform of iSPELL. Today is the 57th Sunday Sahityak Satsang of iSPELL. We proudly call it Sunday Sahityak Satsang because all these satsangs, they do come up with fruitful results. And literature is not only it mirrors life, but literature itself is life. If we are leading our life, that's what literature is all about. And iSPELL is doing the same thing, not only for literature, but also for language. We are bringing all the people, those who are the practitioners of language and literature on the platform of iSPELL on every Sunday, right at 4 o'clock, to make everyone understand one particular thing, that every individual has immense talent. Only one thing which is required is to facilitate. And if we facilitate, then the individual can himself or herself elevate. So facilitate to elevate is the motto of iSPELL. Until and unless we liberate ourselves, we are not going to vibrate. So liberate and vibrate is also another kind of an entity as far as iSPELL is concerned. So we have on this month of October, Dr. Murali Krishnan TR as the event coordinator for the entire month of October, and he is the leader of the ship of October. I hand over this virtual platform to Dr. Murali Krishnan TR, who is the Joint Secretary of iSPELL. The stage is yours, Dr. Murali Krishnan, sir.
Thank you, sir. I believe I am audible there.
Yes, sir.
So welcome all of you. As Dr. Kanshyam, our founder and General Secretary of iSPELL, has mentioned, we are trying our best to elevate ourselves and to get connected from north to south and from east to west, and that is, we are spreading at a fast pace throughout India. And you can see the participants there, they cut across almost all states of India. Now, I have the privilege of being the event coordinator for the last 2-3 weeks, especially this month. And we had 2 excellent sessions last week and before that. First was related to the transgender issues and LGBT. That is how we have titled it, fluidity related to that. And the previous week we had another session on pathography and poetry, related to poetry and the ways in which it is being understood from the perspective of a physician, from the perspective of for the patient and the bystander. Now, I like that. And today we have another exciting topic coming up. So we have today Dr. Srinath, and he will be addressing us with his presentation. And before that, I have this privilege of introducing the Master of Ceremonies. It's none other than Dr. S. Jayanti from Sri S. Ramasamy Naidu Memorial College, Sattur. Now, she is quite renowned in the sense that she is well versed in her academics, she is well versed in her teaching as well as in her research work. Now, when you look into her profile, you'll be surprised to know that she holds 2 PGs, one in public administration and the other in English, and she has done her MPhil and PhD from Madurai Kamaraj University, and she also holds a PGCT and PGDT from Hyderabad, FLU, and she has got her PhD in 2017. Regarding her publications, I should say it is around 20, and that too in standard, well accepted, renowned peer-reviewed journals of more than 20. And she has traveled widely to present more than 25 papers in various national and international conferences. And to her credit, I should also say she has published in various books, chapters and articles, various books and articles. And I should also say that she has been quite well versed in being a resource person for various conferences, seminars, as well as various bodies, chairing of sessions, etc. So it's a great privilege for me to introduce a Master of Ceremonies who is so good and so dynamic and vibrant. So with all, like I should say, happiness and humility, let me invite our master of ceremony, Dr. S. Jayanti, to begin with the next part of the session. So it's over to you, Dr. S. Jayanti.
Thank you, dear sir, for introducing me and giving me such a wide acclaim. Thank you for introducing me to this August forum. It is my privilege and honor to welcome you all to the 57th Sunday Sahitya Satsang. iSPELL, Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature, is a forum which facilitates to elevate the literary academia through the zealous efforts of Professor Ghanshyam, Professor Jyoti Patil, and Professor Payal Datta Chowdhury, the pillars of this noble venture. We come together every Sunday to drink deep into the cup of ambrosia, which is ever flowing with wisdom. Presently, the forum is accommodated by 700 active participants and is reaching out to connect members across the nation through seminars and knowledge exchange and guidance. It is a platform which provides opportunity to explore our potentialities and produces and introduces us to new avenues in language and literature. Without much ado, I take up the duty allotted to me and introduce the speaker of the day. Dr. Srinath Muralidharan K. is former head Department of English and Languages, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Kochi campus. He has an MPhil and a PhD in comparative literature from the University of Hyderabad and is supervising PhD and MPhil projects in travel writing, BHASHA literatures, and genders and sexualities. He has published a monograph, Community and History, Early Narratives of Kerala, and co-edited an anthology of critical essays, Explorations in Critical Humanities, a collection of essays. He has been invited as a visiting fellow at Department of English, University of Delhi in 2018. Professor Muralidharan will be speaking on the topic, Imagining the Jew, some BHASHA roots. He enumerates Jews have immensely contributed to the cultural fabric of India. This talk primarily discusses the representations of Jews in BHASHA literary traditions, focusing specifically on English translations of Rangan, a 1939 Marathi novel written by Vishram Bedekar, and Alia, a 2013 Malayalam novel written by A. Sethu Madhavan. With these words, along with all the intellectual audience, I eagerly invite our resourceful resource person to begin his address.
Thank you, Dr. Jayanti. Good evening, one and all. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be invited for a talk by a renowned academic body like Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature. I thank all the office bearers of the organization, Dr. Ghanshyam sir, Chairperson Dr. Shibani Basu Dubey, Master of Ceremonies Dr. S. Jayanti, Event Coordinator Dr. Muralidharan TR, and all other office bearers of the organization for inviting me to this talk. So without much delay, I'll start the talk. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir. Continue.
Okay, thank you. So here is my title, Imagining the Jew, Some BHASHA Roots. See, this is primarily, this talk is primarily structured around the conception of the Jew figure in literature in general and in Indian regional literatures, better known as BHASHA literatures. So we will just begin the talk with the representation of Jews in world literature in general. So as you all know, Jews are variously represented by both Jewish and other authors across time and space. And this is a relatively new observation regarding community representation. Jews, we all know the political connotations, accepted or assigned with the identity of Jewish population. We imagine Jews in the context of World War. We imagine Jews in the concept of the Exodus, their mobile cultures, and the creative literature, which is consequent of their mobility. So to brush up our imagination or memory rather, we have Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales, the prioress, the character the prioress, who tells of a pious Christian child murdered by Asian Jews. So just have a look at these identities. This is a prioress talking about a pious Christian child, piety, Christianity, child being murdered by Asian Jews. Obviously, it carries an anti-Semitic sentiment. And
Srinath sir, excuse
yes.
me, sir.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Extremely sorry. Could you please do that in the slideshow so that people can see that better?
Just a second.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Fine. I don't see that.
That slideshow on the top, sir. From the
I know, but
no. Third from the right.
Yeah, I got it. Yes, I got it. Is that okay now?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption. So, yeah, we were talking about representation of Jews in world literature. So when we reach Shakespeare, we have the infamous Shylock, who is represented as the notorious moneylender in The Merchant of Venice. And when you come down the centuries, we have Dickens, who's Fagin in Oliver Twist, who is immoral and miserly. But Dickens is, at least he's seemingly unbiased in his representation of Jews, because if in Oliver Twist, if he has portrayed an immoral character, it's a virtuous raya in Our Mutual Friend. And in 19th century, we have George Eliot's Daniel Deronda, published in 1876, which is an honest and sympathetic portrayal of 19th century Judaism, which is it's a very bold attempt by George Eliot. But in the same century, we have Nathaniel Hawthorne, who stands in contrast, by filling anti-Semitic images in 19th century American literature in The Marble Faun. See, here we find two different styles of representation in both England and America. The many ethnic and racial and often negative stereotypes are there across the world. We find money-minded, ugly-looking, villainous, and ostentatiously dressed Jew characters more often than not in world literature. So in post Second World War, as I mentioned before, was a time when Jews were represented differently by different authors for specific reasons. We have many anti-Semitic stereotypes in American literature, written even by American Jewish authors, surprisingly. We have, for instance, over-ambitious and anti-American, characters representation, like Jewish American princess, which is better known JAP, which is a stereotype of American Jewish women as selfish and rich, spoiled brats in Jewish male writers like Philip Roth. One good example would be Goodbye Columbus in 1959. What are the suggestions given by these kind of representations? There are certain literary concerns. We are tempted to think, how are Jews represented in literatures outside Europe and America? Is there anything unique to such representations? Has it got anything to do with the way Jews were received in different parts of the world, or the way they were treated in different parts of the world? What's the role of race and ethnicity of different Jewish communities in their literary representation? I insist different Jewish communities, because we often tend to imagine Jews as a homogeneous community. Jews are one of the most heterogeneous communities all over the world, primarily because of their spread all over the globe. And there are a lot of ethnic and racial differences, heterogeneity within the community. So modern divisions of Jewish ethnicities could be summarized. Of course, there are exceptions. There could be other ethnicities in different parts of the world, and different ethnicities from different parts of the world are sort of claiming Jewish identities sometimes. So we have Ashkenazim from Central Europe, Sephardim denoting Spanish, Portuguese, or North African, and Mizrahim of the East. These are the modern divisions of Jewish ethnicities. And now from the world, we are zeroing in to India. And Indian Jews came from all these three divisions, adding or making the scene all the more complex. So now, from this, we are moving ahead to Indian literatures and Jews. Indian literatures, as we understand now, is better known as BHASHA literatures these days, because we have a technical and political issue with Indian English literatures and vernacular literatures or regional literatures, all these taxonomical issues. So we'll begin with the Indian English writers. Well-known, or probably the most well-known Indian Jewish writer is none other than Nissim Ezekiel from Mumbai. He is one of the towering figures of Indian English literatures. And we have Ruth Pravar Chhabwala, who is basically an Anglo-American, and she was born in Germany and then married to Parsi. Then she settled down in India. So how far, should she be categorized as an Indian Jewish writer is, open for debate. So identity and the obligations of community are themes common to all Indian Jewish literature in English as well as Bhashas, though treatments differ. Identity, when I say identity, there are a lot of, there are so many overtones to this concept, because we have individual identity, we also have communitarian identity uh, assigned to it. So, and the obligations, the sense of belonging of community, all these are themes which surface in all Indian Jewish literature in English and, Bhashas. But how are these differences, how are these nuances treated, and why are they treated in that particular manner? It is pertinent to understand, and it differs from community to community. See, for instance, Indian English literature, they represented Jews differently. Uh, uh, there are observations that Indian English literature in general has been quite elitist, and when it comes to Indian Jewish literature in English, it was even more so. There is that kind of observation. So the first Indian Jew to publish a novel in English depicting the Bene Israel community. A Bene Israel community is from the Konkan area, was Esther David. She is very famous, whose The Walled City was published in 1997. So this becomes a, turning point in the history of Indian literature in English, being a novel written by an Indian Jew representing the community. Another Bene Israel author, Sophie Judah, is known for her collection of English short story. So this anthology is known as Dropped from Heaven, published in 2007. In which she traces the history of Indian Jews from the 1930s. So even though it is a piece of literature, it does talk about the history of Indian Jews from the perspective of an Indian Bene Israeli. So Bene Israeli literally means sons of Israel. Another significant author is J.L. Silliman, whose first novel, The Man with Many Hats, in 2013, becomes the first novel by a member of the Baghdadi Jewish community, the latest Jewish settlers in India. So probably this is one of the very few novels to depict Baghdadi Jewish life from the 1960s to the 1980s. So it talks about another significant Jewish community in India, Baghdadi Jews. But they came not only from Baghdad, they came from different parts of the world, but in and around Baghdad, Iran. So from there, we move on to Jewish BHASHA roots, means regional writing in Indian regional literature in India. Baha'is Joseph Talker's Marathi novel, Gul and Sanobar. Excuse my pronunciation, it could be different. I do not know Marathi. Gul and Sanobar, 1867, is considered the first published work of literature by a Ben Israel Jew. It was soon followed by M.D. Talker's Bago Bahar. Then comes a Hindi novel, Meera Mahadevan's 1961 novel, Apna Ghar. And that was translated into English, does talk about Bene Israeli community. It thematizes Bene Israeli life. But however, it didn't get any critical attention. It has never been included in any of the Hindi syllabi of Indian universities. We have Sheila Rohekar's Miss Samuel, Ek Yehudi Gatha, Miss Samuel, A Jewish Saga, if you roughly translate it into English, was published in 2013. It's another Hindi novel depicting Indian Jewish life. This happens to be the first Hindi novel in 52 years to explore the Bene Israeli community, which is supposedly the largest Jewish group in India. So we find only 2 novels in Hindi talking about Jews written by Jewish people. Now we reach the main text which I have selected for today's discussion. Of course, it is no different from other texts, but there are specific reasons for selecting these texts. One thing is very practical because Ranangan, the Marathi novel, is in Marathi, of course. So I do not know Marathi, so I have relied on the English translation of the novel by Jerry Pinto in 2021. So Ranangan was written in 1939. That's the Second World War starts. So this was written by Marathi who lived between 1906 and 1998. And this happens to be the only novel written by works. He is into non-fictional writing. He is immensely popular in Marathi. He is also popular as a playwright and filmmaker. And this was published and it created a sensation in Marathi, quite a sensation in literary circles. And he was popular as a playwright, as I told you. And he was a trained cinematographer. He has directed films. But this happens to be, for some, his only novel published in Marathi. This I have relied on the English translation of Ranangan. And about the other work, Alia. Alia is a Malayalam novel written by A. Sethumadhavan. He is still there. He was born in 1942. He's still alive. And I have read the Malayalam novel because I read Malayalam. But for practical purpose of this talk, I have relied on the English translation by Dr. Catherine Tangama, and that was published in 2017. Let me begin with 2 basic differences of these texts. One is time. I mean, Ranangan was written in a comparatively turbulent political climate, 1939, when the Second World War was starting, and the impact of world wars was quite obvious, and it was felt in India as well. So this was published in Marathi and significantly not in English. And Alia, Sethu's novel, is a 21st century novel. And Sethu's novel, Sethumadhavan's novel, Sethumadhavan is more popularly known as Sethu in Malayalam literature. He is an established Malayalam writer. He was a banker by profession. He was the CEO of South Indian Bank, and he was working with National Book Trust in Delhi. He is a very proficient, award-winning writer in Malayalam literature. and many of his novels are translated in English. Sethu's novel Alia talks about Kochini Black Jew. Again, here I stress on the identities. Kochini means of Cochin. Black, there are differences within Jewish communities in Kerala as well. There are black, white, and brown Jews in Kerala. I mean, there are very few Jews back now in Kerala. All of them have left. So Alia is about this community. Ranangan, in fact, focuses on other issues. It doesn't talk about Marathi Jews or Konkan Jews or anything of that sort. It is rather an Indo-Judaic encounter. It talks about Indo-Judaic encounter. How did the Marathi population respond to Jewish immigration? How does it negotiate the mobility of the Jewish population? And it is, the novel is essentially anti-fascist, and there are nuanced nationalism, shades of nuanced nationalism. Excuse me. And it also is a love story of Chakradhar Vidwan's, the hero of the novel, if you like, who is a Marathi youth returning from England. No, definitely, the character is from an upper class elitist community. He's returning from England in the among the turbulence and turmoils of Second World War. There is this anxiety of the impending war. So he's returning home from England, and so a love story between him and Hertha Van. Hertha Van is a German Jew. She's escaping Hitler's Germany. She is very proud of her German identity, but she is not accepted by Germans because she is Jew. So, in fact, the entire story, or at least 90%, 85% of the story takes place in that particular liner, that ship, which parades a medley of characters of different nationalities. You find characters from different parts of the world on that ship, from Italy to Shanghai. We find Hertha Van, who is rather expelled from Germany. She's going to Shanghai, and this is an Italian ship, and this Marathi youth, this Chakradhar, is here in that ship. Chakradhar is returning home from England, so their interactions, their talks, and there are other characters from different parts of the world. There are Muslim characters, Indian Muslims, Pakistanis, and there are discussions among these characters about the future, and there are discussions about people who are into business, which nourishes only in the time of World War, money-making business during the war. So how do people make money out of war? How values perish in the face of cruel wars? How people suddenly become strangers. We were friends until yesterday, and from today onwards, we are supposed to be, foes or enemies, and maps change, or maps change frequently, and this cartographic anxiety, if you like, is quite reflected in all these characters. So Ranangan is primarily At the very outset, at a very surface level, it's a love story, and it's a very fast, and it moves very fast. But within the novel, you find very interesting, observations about Jews and responses to Jewish identity by people of uh, other communities or other nationalities. Let me just read out a small part from the text. This is how it goes. Just to give you a taste of the novel. England's enmity with Russia, the possibility of America entering the war, the conflict in Palestine with the Arab Muslims, all this led back to Jews. They might have no country and no common mother tongue, but they numbered many pioneers and thinkers in global culture. A powerful parade from Christ right up to Einstein. So what was their crime? The Nazis said the Jews had broken faith with Germany in the last war. What if the same philosophy of anti-Semitism were to spread to other countries? What then? Would that smell band of Nazi fanatics kill millions of Hindus tomorrow? So here is how Badeker links global politics to nationalism. He says, are Hindu groups and organizations going to kill all the non-Hindus so that no one remain within our borders? Is that the goal? Can that be a goal of any religion? There are so many communities and classes of people who are compradors, people who do not want freedom to come. So thus it goes. So that is just an example which I read out from the novel to give you the taste of the novel. There are, instances when Jewish Germans refusing to learn English. This character, Chakradhar Vidwans, he's trying to teach English to his friends, Jewish friends, and they are reluctant to learn English. They say that we are German Jews and we are comfortable speaking German and we don't want to learn English. So slight linguistic jingoism, if you like, but it does talk about certain Jewish identities in a specific manner through the lens of World War afflicted Indian elite class. Alia, on the other hand, it talks about a community. It has a focus on Indian Jew community. It talks about Kochi is exactly on the generational dilemmas in performing Aliyah, the Hebrew term for elevation after Israel was formed in 1948. So all know the history of Israel, which was politically formed in 1948, just an year after Indian independence. And since then, diasporas, Jewish diasporas across the world began migrating to Israel, considering Israel as their home. So Aliyah is the Hebrew term, which literally means elevation. It is also metaphorical. So here in Aliyah, Kochini Black Jews, they keep dreaming of migrating their homeland. But the fact is that their dream is, they are tantalized, in fact, because they are here in Kerala or Kochi for centuries. They have a history of about 2000 years, and they were born here, they grew up here, they speak fluent Malayalam, Many of them didn't know Hebrew, some of them knew. But suddenly, throughout the generation, this dream of returning to their motherland. So how does a community who are well accepted in a particular land, how do they negotiate their dream of going back to their homeland, which is a promised land, of course, because as you know, Jews were persecuted in different parts of the world, but they were welcomed in India, and they were assimilated peacefully in this land, and they were very comfortable here, and they were all very happy. And they found a space in a place like Kerala, for instance. They came. There are different stories regarding their, arrival. People, Jews came over generations in different parts of the history. They assimilated to Kerala culture, and they settled down in Kodungalur in Kerala, which is a cultural potpourri. Christianity, the earliest, the oldest Christian and Jewish communities of India are from Kerala. They came here. Of course, these are all debatable because there are new communities contesting these claims, especially especially in the case of Jews. So this novel basically talks about two generations. The older generation who were rather excited to migrate to the promised land since 1950s in response to the Zionist call. Zionist call is the global, alarm given to the entire world to reach Israel. I mean, this call is for all Jews across the world to reach Israel, the homeland. So the older generation, which is aptly represented by the character called Eliacha, were rather excited to migrate to the promised land, where they don't have to be aliens. They dreamt of being in their homeland. So since 1950s, this aspiration to reach their homeland was there. Even before 1950s, Jews in Kerala began to migrate to Israel, but much more organized waves of immigration began post 1950s. And so there is this older generation which nourishes this dream vis-a-vis the latest generation represented by Solomon, who is a tight-lipped character. He speaks very less, he listens more, he doesn't speak much, but he's brimming with emotions, and he is the main character of Alia. He is rather apprehensive of leaving this homeland, and he finds it very difficult to accept that he has to leave Kerala and go to Israel, of which he doesn't know anything at all, because he grew up in Kerala. His parents lived here, his grandparents lived here, so over generation they were here. And what will be the life in Israel? That anxiety is quite testing for a character like Solomon. And there are characters like David, who is a poor bookbinder, who decides for himself. He opts to stay back, declaring that he's not just a Jew. He declares openly that he is Jew, no doubt of it, but he is not just Jew. Beyond that, he is a Malayali, he's an Indian. He says there are so many layers of identities within him, and he's very sensitive to understand those nuances, and he opts to stay back in Kerala. Sorry. So there are, differences of opinion within the community. Sedhu's representation of Black Jew are from a place called Chendamangalam, which is the native place of Sedhu. So Chendamangalam was an ancient Jewish settlement. Jews settled down in the ancient Anjuvanam in Kerala. So Kodungalur, Chendamangalam, all these, they're all neighborhood places where Jews, Christians, and Muslims existed in a very harmonious manner. Jews came way before Christianity, and they were treated differently by different, political European colonial interventions in Kerala history. For instance, all the rulers of Kerala embraced Jewish population. They were very enterprising community, and they had very amiable relationship with other communities in Kerala, and they didn't have any difficulty in adjusting to this situation. They were welcomed here. But Kerala has a long history of European colonialism, which began with the Portuguese, and the Portuguese, harassed Jewish community like anything, and the Jewish people had a tough time, bearing the brunt of Portuguese atrocities, and they were driven away from Kodungalur, and they had to, form groups within them, which later, becomes caste-like communities by name Black, Jew, and Brown. And at the end, the white Jews, which formed a minority within the Jewish community, became, they reached the top in caste hierarchy, and Black Jews were, at the lowest strand in the ladder. And definitely Black Jews were more in number, so there were tensions. So this novel, Alia, talks about Black Jews in particular. All the characters are from Black Jewish community, who talks about white Jews differently. There are some white Jews who lived in the city, Cochin city, and there is this reference of this girl who is married to someone in Chendamangalam, and that lady rides a cycle, and a lady riding a cycle is quite a feast for the Black Jews in Chendamangalam. So there are such descriptions and all. What I mean to say is the focus of Sethu Madhavan is in the community. It's a pretty difficult read in the sense that there are a lot of digressions in the novel. It moves from back and forth, you can say, stream of consciousness style of novel, and the novel is full of historical references. Sethu has made an in-depth research of Jewish culture in Kerala, and has infused a literary tale into it, whereas Ranangan is much more appealing in terms of literary aesthetics, but at the very same time charged with political nationalist political ideas vis-a-vis World War politics. So about Indian Jewish communities, as I just mentioned, there were no violence against Jews in India. but at the very same time, there are feelings of apartness and difference. Um, the people in India did not consider them as Indians, although there were no, uh, assaults or something like. They were very friendly. They had all the acceptance in society. So that was a peculiar kind of bonding. So there were strong connections and emotional bonds with other Indian communities, and especially in the case of Konkan and Kerala, Malabar Jews, better known as Black Jews. They had very casteist rituals, and they were very well accepted by the upper caste Indians, Hindus. And however, no intermarriages within Jewish communities were there and with other communities, because Jewish people in India always nourished a sense of purity, blood purity, and also they were rather hesitant to mix with other even other Jewish people because of the racial and ethnic differences. So major three divisions of Indian Jews are like Bene Israeli, who are found in Konkan area, Baghdadi Jews in and around Kolkata, and Kochini Jews who are found in Malabar. Of course, there are other subdivisions as well. There are Jews in Manipur, some parts of the Northeast India, and other parts. There are some, later Jewish settlements in, Andhra Pradesh. So there are newer divisions as well. But on the whole, there are three major divisions. They are Bene Israeli, Baghdadi, and Kochni. See, black and white Jews were among Bene Israeli community and Kochni communities, but Kochni community additionally had brown Jews too. Um, and there were other social divisions also within and among different Jewish communities. One example is the Baghdadis kept a distance from the Bene Israel synagogues and cemeteries, considering them to be less orthodox. This had happened between the white and black Jews of Malabar as well. So, and these relations were inherently hierarchical, and those hierarchies, although among all Jewish communities, manifested in casteism in Indian context. Casteism, as you know, is very much unique to India. So what has it got to do with the novels? So the fiction community nexus. What is the relation between fiction and community? So one primary point is the fictional narratives of communities in Bhashas offer insights into their aspirations, because the actual lived experience of different Jewish communities in different parts of the world differed significantly. And the representation of their lives in fiction naturally reflected different sensibilities, as we understand from the difference between Ranangan and Alia. I forgot to tell you that Ranangan means battlefield. I expect that everyone knows that Ranangan is a very popular word with Sanskrit root, so it means battlefield. So the battlefield. So who all participate in that battle? It's not just Nazis, Hitler, and Axis and all. It is the fight or struggle of sensibilities, basically. It is the fight of ethnicities, nationalities, and much more. Similarly, in Alia, The focus is on community, as I told you. So there is an inherent struggle. The call for the homeland vis-a-vis the comfort of the land in which they settled over centuries. So the sensibilities of all these communities differ, although they are all in India. Fictional narratives of these communities therefore offer insights into their aspirations. So the aspirations of Bene Israeli could be radically different from the aspirations of say Kochini Jews. Of course, the binding factor was the dream of leaving India to their homeland. Of course, Indian Jewish literature in English is growing fast, but as I mentioned before, it often tends to be very elitist and consequently exclusive. It hardly succeeds in reflecting the regional flavor, the vernacular spirit of the community. So Indian Jewish literature has to be studied wider and deeper in regional contexts. The heterogeneity of the community reflects in their literary sensibilities. So in that sense, I suggest that the fiction is to be read as community narrative. So if you read Ranangan and Alia as community narrative, the entire read is different. The way you understand the text is very different. I'll conclude my talk with a few theoretical concepts on community, which I hope would be, insight, which would be one is by Jean-Luc Nancy, the French theoretician, who in his very famous The Inoperative Community mentions the desire for Gemeinschaft in Gesellschaft. Gemeinschaft is his concept of a well-knit community. Actually, in the inoperative community, he argues that there is a desire for a well-knit original community, which he called Gemeinschaft. My German could be poor, excuse it. As in the past, in modern society, Gesellschaft. Gesellschaft is modern society. So, so this desire for a well-knit original community, as in the past. So in modern society, we have a desire for a well-knit original community. And he calls this immanentism. That is his concept of inoperative community. So we have this notion in Alia and to some extent in Ranangan. When you imagine your homeland, of which you have no idea, but there is this desire for a well-knit original community. You shattered across the world. So to be well-knit as an original community is a desire, a secret desire for Gemeinschaft. Then in his Being Singular Plural, Nancy's work, he talks about our being with others determine us. So for instance, who is Srinath? Srinath is Srinath in relation to someone else. So our belong with others determine us. How did Jewish communities define themselves? Indian communities, Marathi context or Malayalam context, whatever. So he has this thrust on singular individual with no shared identity, singular individual Jew. He actually sums up his notion of community as being with as opposed to being in. My sense of community is born out of being with other communities. Jewish community in Kerala, its identity is related to his sense of community being with and not being in. So there is this, tension between individual and community. Then another concept is Maurice Bloch's response to Nancy in the unavowable community, where he talks about community membership, which is the loss of individual identity to a collective ego. Like David says in Aliyah, he says that I am Jew, but I am not only Jew, I am also a Malayali, I am also an Indian. So his loss of individual identity to a collective ego, which adds to community membership. So both Nancy and Blanchot conceptualize community with no unity, social bond, and shared identity. Then we have Agamben, Giorgio Agamben, the Italian critic, who responded to them in The Coming Community, and in which he again focused on the fragments. He picked up fragments and tried to make sense of community as a whole. He discussed a political community which is constantly coming and resisting state control. He says that community is always in the process of formation and it evolves constantly. Against all these Western notions, we have an Eastern notion of community which specifically emphasized identity and social cohesion. For instance, Partha Chatterjee's community in the East, where he talks about community with fuzzy boundaries. Boundaries keep changing. He actually argues that the categories employed by modern social theory are not effective to understand Eastern communities which have fuzzy boundaries. So in the case of Jews in India, we have a curious mix of the West and the East, and constant efforts to negotiate their identity. Okay, I think I'm done. Thank you so much. And yeah, if there are any clarifications or something, I'll be very happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was an insightful lecture. Actually, if I tell the truth, if I want to tell the truth, it instilled in me an urge to grab the text and gobble it up. Kindly excuse me if I'm using a coarse language, but that was what I felt when you were enumerating on the BHASHA rules. Oh. Ranangan and Alia stand far apart from each other, belonging to different periods. But you were able to bring a connect between the two. And very beautifully you delineated it. Thank you so much for your lecture, which is going to prepare a route for us for future researchers. When you were talking about Alia, some characters really struck my eye. That is Eliacha. You gave a comparison between the older character and the latest generation character. The feeling of belongingness which the later generation character starts having when he settles in a particular place. He does not have any idea about what his original homeland must have been. So he feels more at home here than over there. Thank you so much, sir. And I just made note of some words that you had been using, like the loss of individual identity to collective ego. And the community is always in the process of formation, but which is very much true, sir. Because community, we cannot, it cannot be stagnant. It is always dynamic, not static. Okay, sir. Now I take upon myself the duty of asking the participants to bring up their questions. We already have a question over here, which is from Dr. A.S. Puama. Sir, I think you will be able to see the question in your screen. The question is, what is the image of India in Jewish and Israel fiction? How does this image compare to the image of the Jewish in Indian fiction? Not Jewish, it is a Jews, she says.
Just a second, let me just read it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. But honestly, I don't know the answer of the first question. Image of India in Jewish and Israeli fiction. That is indeed to be prompted. Definitely, there are certain thoughts and responses from the Indian diaspora in Israel. I had the chance of interacting with some Jews who migrated from Cochin to Israel. I talked to them. They spoke to me in pure Malayalam. They still relish Malayalam. They are very fond of Kerala culture and all. But they, at the very same time, they said their children don't speak Malayalam. They don't know how to read and write Malayalam, and they are married to Jewish people from different parts of the world, and they don't know Hebrew either, and they do experience racism in Israel by other Jews, which is again another point to be thought of seriously in connection with literature. Coming to the next part of the question, how does this image compare to the image of the Jewish in Indian fiction? Of course, the Jewish in Indian fiction is very heterogeneous, and the reflection is quite imaginary, I would say, because the Indian experiences of Jewish people in different parts of the country have been quite heterogeneous. So the responses will also be similarly heterogeneous. Thank you.
Yes. Actually, Dr. A. Suama has given one more message to just ponder over. One of the prominent Jew poets who is well known in India is Nizam Ezekiel, who is called the Indian English poetry's father of modernity. At least two of his poems allude to his experience as a young Jew in India. It is said that he opened the way for a new Indian poetry tradition. Sir, could you please explain this observation with reference to his poems which allude to it?
Very good poem. In fact, I do not remember many of his poems now. I haven't taught Ezekiel, to be very frank. But I do remember reading about Ezekiel's poetry as a Jew poet, Indian Jew poet. There is this very interesting paper by Professor Raj Rao, who retired from University of Pune. He has an excellent paper on Nizam Ezekiel's poetry and how influenced was his poetry from his Jewish sensibilities. Definitely, he's a very prominent figure in Indian English poetry. And if you call him the father of modernity, I would join you. But he openly declared that he didn't speak Hebrew at home. Neither did his parents spoke Hebrew. And he talks about meeting Jewish people in Kerala and learning Hebrew from some so-called pandits. Even in Kerala, not many Jew people spoke Hebrew, but there was at least some pandits who used to teach Hebrew. Even in Alia, we have reference of a person who runs from one particular household to another, teaching Jew people Hebrew, like preparing them to migrate to Israel, like we do IELTS, coaching these days. So likewise, Ezekiel was a very amazing mixture of the Jewish and the Indian, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You've really opened the Pandora's box. Thank you so much.
Okay, I request some more questions from the participants. If they have any questions, please you can either ask, sir, or put it in the chat box. So we see that only Dr. Puama has questions to ask. If it is okay, Murali Krishna sir, shall I go to the next program?
Yes, of course. We'll move on to the next part of the program.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So the chairperson of the 57th Sunday Sahitya Satsang is Dr. Shivani Bashu Dubey. She is the Associate Professor and Head Department of English, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. The Bhopal School of Social Sciences, according to what she has given, is an autonomous NAC A graded college in its consecutive cycle of grading. So that is something to very great. That shows the hard work that has been done by the teachers over there. Dr. Shibani has 22 years of teaching experience in higher education. She has done a doctorate in Girish Karnad's place. She has 2 books to her credit, that those 2 belong to Karnad. She has presented research papers at various national and international conferences. She has also published many articles in national and international journals. She has UGC minor and major research project to her credit. She has been invited as a resource person for faculty development programs. Presently, she is working on an ICSSR major research project on social science aspects of COVID-19. She is an academician pursuing the profession of teaching with a relentless passion. Ma'am, I invite you to share your views on Professor Muralidharan's session that has just taken place.
Thank you so much, Jayanti ma'am, for this introduction. Well, let me first congratulate Srinath sir for this wonderful and very, very different. I hope I'm audible, Jayanti ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. You're audible.
Okay,
You're audible.
okay.
Your voice is clear.
Just checking. Yes. So, Srinath sir, many congratulations. You opened up actually new vistas for thought. It was really a thought-provoking session. Now, generally, what happens the moment the term Jews, it comes to our mind, it has a very, very stereotyped connotation, as you mentioned, that they are the money-minded, ugly-looking, villainous characters, because that is the image which the New Testament, Bible New Testament has portrayed in front of us. It traces back to Judas, who betrayed Christ, right? So that is the stereotyped image. Now, but then we have to understand the fact that Jews can't be stereotyped in that connotative context or connotative meaning, rather. Now, as you mentioned that they are the heterogeneous community, and when we come to Indian literatures in English, we have many Jewish writers, and Jews have been one of the major communities residing in India. That goes without saying, without my reiterating it. But the thing is, probably we did not stereotype the Jews because we didn't define them in that religious context. Srinath sir, can it be said that way, that since we did not define them or put them into a separate compartment, like as is their stereotype picture by the Occidental world, by the West, so we have tried to make them or include them within our community, within our culture, within our social scenario. But then again, they have their distinctions and divisions, as you mentioned about Kochani, Baghdadi, or Bene Israeli. And then when they are residing in India, did they feel a sense of alienation? That is the main question. As you said that they were discriminated when they go back to Israel, they are treated as somebody not from their own community. So that is a big question, like what is this inclusiveness, even when we consider them as a community as a whole. So that is a wonderful perspective, and literature would open up definitely new ideas, new thoughts in that direction. I like the concept of being with the community rather than being in the community, or that kind of a segregation. That was again very thought-provoking. But believe me, this was something very new and very innovative concept which you shed light on in your today's presentation. Thank you so much, sir. I know and I believe that everyone who participated, and it's going on YouTube live as well, they will be really benefited, and even the research scholars, they will definitely get some different and new perspectives to be implemented in the field of research. Thank you so much, sir. Jayanti ma'am?
Yes. Thank you, ma'am, for expressing and consolidating the ideas of Professor Muralidharan. I request the event coordinator to just invite the General Secretary to give his views on the presentation.
Dr. Ghanshyam, sir, I think you are there. Let me now invite our General Secretary, the founder of iSPELL, to express his opinion on the paper as well as the concepts that have been discussed.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, thank you very much, Murali Krishnan, sir. Indeed, it's a great pleasure to listen to Dr. Srinath on various aspects of Jews. And moreover, it's an eye-opener for me because knowing about the Jews and knowing about their nuances, knowing about their versatility, at the same time, from homogeneous to heterogeneous. So that kind of deliberation, what he has developed, and India as a country is known not for homogeneity, but it's known for heterogeneity. We are united because of we are heterogeneous. And we have different cultures, different types of rituals we do practice. And that has given a kind of identity to the Indians, that even having lot many people, lot many rituals, lot many cultures, but India still is one country, a united one. But it happens also in some of the communities also, they don't want to get involved with the people of other sects. The same thing happens here with Jews also. So they are very pure at heart, they are very pure at blood, and they are very pure at their own way of doing their rituals, because they want to conserve and they want to keep their identity in a very closed shell. They didn't want to open up. They don't want to make it to the public to know about everything of their own. So in that way, I think this particular deliberation of Dr. Srinath has given a wonderful insight into the Jew community, and definitely it will bring more research scholars to work on these areas, because these talks are not only the talks related to a kind of a satsang. Satsang is fruitful only when these aspects of satsang will be incorporated in the research. The research should be the action research, not on a thematic kind of a thing, but it should be an action research. It should reach the community. It should reach the people to read it. It should reach the people to analyze it, synthesize it, and then to bring out something which is new, so that the entire academia will come together to have a wonderful thought on these aspects. So thank you very much, Dr. Srinath sir, for enlightening us, and not only enlightening us, but also honoring us by your talk on the platform of iSPELL. Thank you very much, sir. At the same time, I am thankful to Dr. Shibani Basu Dubey, who has not only in a good way, she has completely analyzed the entire talk, but she has put forth her comment also. And always it is desired from the chairperson to put forth their remark. And in that, Shibani Basu Dubey has done wonderfully well. And being a good seasoned campaigner, I should say, as far as English language and literature is concerned, she is a wonderful friend of mine, and we have MOU also with Bhopal School of Social Sciences, and in which she has taken a what you call dominant kind of a role to sign the MOU. So thank you very much, Dr. Shivani Basu, for doing the honors. Can we have the certificate, Dr. Shamta?
Yes, I'm sharing the screen.
Yeah. Srinath sir, it was nice listening to you, and this is a token of love and gratitude from iSPELL. Kindly accept this certificate from iSPELL.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor.
This is iSPELL's logo, sir. We dance to the tune of language and literature. And with this, we have the certificate for you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And this certificate goes to Dr. Shibani Basu Dubey for doing the honors as the chairperson. And the next one is to the Master of Ceremonies, Dr. S. Jayanti. She has led the ship to its destination, and in between, she was a wonderful captain also. She not only led the things in a right way, but at the same time, she has managed the things well. She responded very well. At the same time, she has taken up the issue in a very good way. So, Dr. S. Jayanti, this certificate goes to you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. And thanks to Dr. Murali Krishnan for bringing wonderful scholars in the month of October on the platform of iSPELL. Though he said, I'm bringing all the scholars from Kerala, but that doesn't matter. Kerala is, it appears like Chile, right? And Chile is, sometimes it's very hot, and sometimes Chile is so, means it's the Indian masala. Basically, Indian masala comprises of, the best thing in Indian masala is chili. So from the state of Chile, we are enlightened, and we are having good number of people, those who are not only contributing on the platform of iSPELL, but they are enlightening all the people here together. So thank you very much, Dr. Murali.